What's up, everybody, and welcome into Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. I am your host, Josh Helmer, right here, Iowa, at the voice of college football. And so happy that you're a part of the program tonight on a Thursday night, right here, the voice of college football. You can follow me. I am at Josh on Ref across social media, at Hawkeyes Wire, where you can follow the written work of myself and the rest of the team at HawkeyesWire.com. Head on over there and read up what we got going on at HawkeyesWire.com. And, of course, everybody should be following the voice of college football across social media at the VOCFB. What's up, everybody? Welcome in on Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. We've got a lot to talk about with you tonight, as now we are, say it with me, 51 days away from Iowa Hawkeyes football. So starting to creep on up, starting to get closer to Iowa football. So happy to have all of you with us this evening. I'll toss into the chat the StreamYard link in case you want to jump in. Tonight's our call-in show. So this opens the floor for you to jump in with your thoughts, and we can just go back and forth. Iowa football, Big Ten football, college football as a whole out there. But let's open up tonight talking about the man that you, I, and every Iowa fan is counting upon to change the fortunes of the Hawkeyes. One, Mark Gronowski, in some summer availability with the Iowa media. He met and he spoke this week, and Mark Gronowski had plenty to say, but let's start with the number one item from Mark Gronowski, the item that you needed to hear coming off off-season shoulder surgery that limited Mark Gronowski throughout the spring. Mark Gronowski says, "I'm back, baby. I'm back to 100%. I'm healthy." The quote from Mark Gronowski to reporters, "I'm feeling great, feeling 100%. I'm out here working with the guys every single day in lift, throwing during our throwing sessions, practicing during our captain practices. So I feel great." Mark Gronowski earlier this week talking with the Iowa media. So for anyone that was concerned that the Hawkeyes could be finding themselves into a similar situation like you experienced with Cade McNamara, where you got a talented quarterback out of the transfer portal that had Big Ten championship winning experience in Cade McNamara coming over to Iowa. If you were worried that you got damaged goods again, at least in the summer, Mark Gronowski is saying, look, I'm back to 100%. I'm throwing the football. Mark Gronowski has to be 100% for Hawkeye fans, has to be 100% for this Iowa football team. He mentioned some interesting things. The feet of Mark Gronowski, that was a topic that the media asked Mark Gronowski about quickly, that the buzz from teammates is that Mark Gronowski is deceptively fast, quicker than he looks, which he's a bigger quarterback, right? 6'2", 235-pound frame, which is encouraging, something that you need if you're Mark Gronowski to navigate the rigors of a Big Ten schedule, to navigate those hits that at some point, though you have an offensive line that has quite a bit of experience coming back on it, particularly in that interior of the offensive line, thinking about Bo Stevens and Logan Jones, those couple of guys that are on some preseason All-Big Ten lists that have a bunch of starts under their belt, and obviously Jennings Dunker out at right tackle. So you've got experience along three spots of your offensive line. Trevor Lauk, someone that at left tackle, if that's who it winds up being, there's excitement about what that ceiling for Trevor Lauk could look like. And then, of course, you went and you supplemented by bringing Bryce George in from Ferris State. You've got Jack Dotzler still in the mix at that left tackle spot. And, again, at right guard, Cade Pieper is somebody that has been a positive name on the development front and somebody that Iowa fans are excited about. So the offensive line should be able to protect you. And, of course, you've got some experience coming back for Mark Gronowski. But look, the frame's not a bad thing to have for Gronowski because, again, at some point, whether those guys are as good as we think that they can be, if that experience protects you, the way that it should or not, at some point, one of these defensive linemen, defensive tackles, defensive ends from these Big Ten schools, they're going to get Gronowski. So he's got the frame, but he's deceptively fast. That's one of the talks of the town early throughout this summer, is that Mark Gronowski is faster than he would appear at 6'2", 235. His quote, Gronowski said, "I'm one of those guys that doesn't look like he'd be that fast, but I've got those long strides once I get going." So that has impressed Mark Gronowski's Iowa teammates, but the leadership side for Mark Gronowski has certainly been an item that has impressed his teammates, and it's something that he and the Iowa media were talking about this week. Not a surprise. Mark Gronowski's the starting quarterback for this group of Hawkeyes. He comes over as a two-time national champion at the FCS level from South Dakota State. He's the Walter Payton Award winner a couple of years back. So Mark Gronowski comes in with a championship pedigree that, look, you have to respect, and he's the starting quarterback. So that lends itself to being a natural leader. But even with all of that and the expectation that Mark Gronowski would provide that, it sounds as though Gronowski's Iowa teammates, they have been receptive to Mark Gronowski's leadership so far, which you love to see as the summer workouts are underway, but you haven't entered the beginning, the heat of fall camp. That's just around the corner now, sneaking up on it, some couple of weeks away now from fall camp getting underway. And then, of course, not too awfully long after that, we'll get a look, one final open practice look at Mark Gronowski, the first open practice look at Mark Gronowski for the Kids Day at Kinnick, which is coming up in August. So all of that is right around the corner, and yet Gronowski has already impressed his teammates from a leadership standpoint, which for this team to do what everyone wants it to accomplish, Gronowski has to lead in the way that he talks, the work ethic day-to-day that he exhibits, and then obviously the performance that he delivers to this group of Hawkeyes. And it sounds like that's happening so far. One of the other items that was interesting for Mark Gronowski this week, he went out of his way, in addition to his time with the Manning Passing Academy, which that from some Iowa fans the other week, we talked about Gronowski was alongside John Mateer, one of the names that a couple of analysts out there said impressed them the most. Though we've gone down that road with, say, Spencer Petras in the past, Mark Gronowski, he took something out of the Manning Passing Academy experience beyond just, hey, picking the brains of Eli Manning, Peyton Manning, who are, of course, each multiple Super Bowl championship winning quarterbacks. That Manning legacy carries a lot of weight. So for any young quarterback, Mark Gronowski, any of the other names that were there, that's got to count for something. Any pushback that you might have on the Gronowski Manning Passing Academy experience because you lived that life, you saw that with Spencer Petras, and you heard good things coming out of the Manning Passing Academy experience for Spencer Petras, and then lo and behold, it didn't translate on Saturdays for Iowa for the positive experience that it was for Petras, morphing into, of course, in-season success. There's still something to be said for Mark Gronowski getting to spend that time around Eli Manning, Peyton Manning, but also the other quarterbacks. That's what Mark Gronowski said this week to the Iowa media, that it was a great opportunity for him to learn from these other college quarterbacks that were invited to the Manning Passing Academy, pick their brains on what their routines look like. So that was a positive experience for Mark Gronowski. But he also went out of his way to take a couple of pass catchers throughout this offseason down to Dallas for some workouts, some throwing sessions with just those specific receivers and one tight end who we'll talk about in just a moment. That no small thing on the leadership front. Again, Mark Gronowski leading by example. Mark Gronowski, I think folks understanding what this Iowa opportunity represents for him. Of course, he's the two-time FCS national champion. He's established as a Walter Payton Award winner, which is the FCS version of the Heisman Trophy. he is that guy, has been that guy. He could have gone to the NFL draft this spring, this past offseason. But of course, he had the shoulder cleanup that he needed to get done. And this opportunity to come to Iowa to perform, to be the quarterback that changes the narrative around what Iowa's passing offense under Tim Lester can be. And not what under Tim Lester it could be, but just the passing offenses in Iowa City, inside Kinnick and beyond. If Gronowski's the guy that can morph that, and I say under Tim Lester because, of course, this is the second season under Tim Lester, but most of the bad, just so we're clear, not under the watch of offensive coordinator Tim Lester. But if Mark Gronowski is that guy, what this opportunity means for him from an NFL draft standpoint, from a professional future standpoint, it could be transformative, could be gigantic for him financially and for his professional future now and, of course, down the road. So he has taken a serious leadership standpoint to grab some wide receivers in time that didn't have to be spent that way, but taking this group of pass catchers down to Dallas to work alongside him, to get a feel for what Mark Gronowski is all about. And those names, in case you're curious, who those names are and what that looked like. Addison Ostrenga, of course, the tight end, one of a couple of tight ends that you hope can make that Iowa tight end leap. KJ Parker, Sam Phillips, Jacob Gill. So that trio of wide receivers and that tight end, Addison Ostrenga, a part of the group that went with Mark Gronowski to Dallas for a little extra throwing work, some extra workouts throughout this offseason. That certainly an example of Mark Gronowski's leadership and maybe a good sign for those names. And if you're looking for a breakout candidate, are one of those names the names that you look to as a breakout candidate? Jacob Gill, kind of know what he's all about. And if the offense is better, then you can pretty safely assume that Jacob Gill, his production, it's going north, right? It's going upwards if Mark Gronowski transforms this offense, just because he was the best pass-catching wide receiver for this Hawkeyes team a season ago. So maybe not the breakout candidate on that front, but Sam Phillips, a name that comes into this program, one of the transfer portal acquisitions this offseason that you're hoping can be someone that, again, is a part of this positive transition forward for Iowa's offense. Sam Phillips, the Chattanooga wide receiver that comes in. So notable, I think, that he was there. KJ Parker, I thought, did some nice things when you date back to that open spring practice that we got to look at. So maybe that's somebody that Mark Gronowski likes. Maybe KJ Parker is somebody that has already caught the eye of what Mark Gronowski, but both Parker and Sam Phillips, I think that's at least an early bookmark. Not saying that anything is by any stretch of the imagination for Gronowski, for this Iowa offense, for Tim Lester, for any of these pass catchers. Nothing in the way of guarantees, but that's notable, right? That's something that you bookmark and say, okay, let's revisit after the opening non-conference portion of the season and see if maybe there were some tea leaves out there that KJ Parker, Sam Phillips were breakout candidates to watch. Addison Ostrenga probably needs to be a breakout guy for Iowa if this season is going to wind up the direction that we all hope that it does. Or Zach Ortworth, one of those two guys. Iowa just feels like, though this is now Tim Lester's show and it's the Shanahan offense, and maybe that means that the Iowa tight end play that you've been accustomed to of the past, maybe you don't need as much of that as you did in the past. I look around and I see George Kittle in the National Football League, name that obviously all of us pretty familiar with, what he did at Iowa, and of course morphing into one of the NFL's biggest offensive stars and one of the best tight ends in the National Football League. He's a pretty big piece of that Shanahan offense out in San Francisco and will continue to be so. So maybe it's not a prereq, maybe it's not a requirement that an Addison Ostringa or a Zach Ortworth takes that big leap forward. But, man, it sure be a nice benefit, wouldn't it? It would sure be helpful if that happened, wouldn't it? So Addison Ostringa, a part of that group with Mark Gronowski that made the trek down to Dallas for a little bit of extra work. Mark Gronowski, the big news, he's back to 100%. He says the shoulder, it's back. It feels fine. He's going through all of his offseason throwing drills. He's practicing in the captain's practices like he can or should or would be. So that is not some minimal thing for Iowa. If we were at this stage and Kirk Ferentz back in the spring, as he did, told us that, based on this shoulder cleanup, Mark Gronowski is going to be back for all of our summer work. He'll be back for fall camp. We're not concerned about that. This timeline is checking those boxes off that Kirk Ferentz said would be checked off for Iowa. So that's good news. Good news to hear that Mark Gronowski back to 100%. And now let's just sit back and wait for the rest of what this set of summer workouts brings into fall camp and obviously the Kids Day at Kinnick. Okay, a couple of your thoughts out there. Buck Wild on this Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live, edition number 18 for me. Let's play a hypothetical for a second. What if the new quarterback one can't adjust to Power 4 football and is worse than Petrus? Then what? What if Kirk Ferentz goes 5-7? Do we pressure him to leave? Okay, a lot to unpack there, Buck Wild, but let's do the hypothetical game. If Mark Gronowski can't adjust to Power 4 football, if he's worse than Petrus, then this season's probably not going well at all. Okay, because there's at least some legitimate questions on what does the defensive backfield look like? Do you have that defensive star back there, a la a Riley Moss from a couple of years ago? There's names obviously before Riley Moss. Do you have that Cooper DeJean? Is Xavier Wampa, are you confident that he's going to morph into that 5-star player that he was built to be and signed to Iowa as? There's at least, I think, reasonable, fair concerns or cautions on that front that, okay, do we have that guy? Now, there's some optimism building for TJ Hall at one of those corner slots for Iowa. Feels like that's something that we're hearing more and more about. I've seen some different, do we still say way too early depth chart projections out there? I'll give proper credit where credit's due. I was looking at Sean Bach's depth chart projection the other day, and I would imagine Sean Bach pretty dialed in to what's going on, right? Has some nice, if it's players on roster connections, I would think too, some assistant coaching connections with Iowa that when he puts a depth chart out, though it might not be 100% accurate in every instance, probably it's coming from a place that's pretty well sourced, pretty informed, and he had Shahid Barrows as his projected starting corner opposite TJ Hall right now. So that was interesting that he had the South Dakota transfer edition, Shahid Barrows, who South Dakota, the buzz there is that a lot of what defensively they run is similar in the defensive backfield and maybe just across the board collectively to what Phil Parker and Iowa run. So that can make that transition in. Again, somebody bumping up from South Dakota to Iowa, that can make that transition a little smoother for him. But look, that has questions on it, right? Because we've not seen Shahid Barrows. That is a leap up, which you always keep that in mind to some degree. TJ Hall, like Deshaun Lee, if it is Deshaun Lee opposite TJ Hall, that defensive backfield, there's reasons at corner, there's reasons at safety with Xavier Wampa, who hasn't been that 5-star consistent guy yet for Iowa. There's reasons to think that this Iowa defense, is it ready if a quarterback is, Buck Wild, to your point, not just, okay, worse than Spencer Petras. Let's say marginally better than Spencer Petras or equal to Spencer Petras. If that's the quarterback play we're talking about for Iowa, then with some reasons to have some questions defensively about, okay, is this an Iowa defense that's that top 5 version Iowa defense, top 10 nationally Iowa defense? Under that scenario, I don't know that it's 5-7, but it's probably not great. And do you pressure Kirk Ferentz to leave? Yeah, that conversation under a losing season would heat up to some degree. Now, he's owed a ton of money and obviously is coming off sustained success here, though the offense has, of course, been a national embarrassment. It's been a laughingstock for an extended period of time. So is there any pressure for Kirk Ferentz to leave? Yeah, and that is already out there, where there's a faction of the fan base that is frustrated with Kirk Ferentz, right? That's sick of the offense where you don't take chances, sick of the offense where you're incredibly conservative. But do I think that he gets fired after that type of season? No, I don't. Would it heat up for Kirk Ferentz to maybe amicably retire in some shorter timeline? Yeah, maybe, but let's hope that's not the case for Iowa. I agree with you, T. Hink. Kirk probably never getting fired, though. This is Beth Getz now running the show, and it's no longer Barta, so it is a different situation in that respect for Iowa, for Kirk Ferentz. But I don't think we're going to that point. I think this is set to be a successful season. I understand respectfully the hypothetical, what if this happens negatively and what if that happens negatively? And I think you entertain some of those hypotheticals, or I'm willing to, on Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. But I'm optimistic. I think a lot of this is going to work out positively for the Hawkeyes. Scott, good to see you. Good evening. We're just going to take it game by game. I don't get too high or too low. Go Hawks. Let's see. I will hop on the show if nobody wants to join. T. Hink, jump on in the back half of this thing. I got a couple of things I can roll through. The weeds of college football, if you haven't picked up on this by now, I can certainly get into some of the weeds of college football. And I think there's some positive news out there for Iowa today that could be building. There was some negative news a couple of days ago from Yahoo's Ross Dellinger, and now today there could be some positive momentum, and we'll get into that in just a moment. Iowa basketball has officially signed Trey Thompson. So if you're a part of that fandom to where I just can't believe that a good thing is happening until a good thing has officially happened, well, I'm here to tell you and remind you, most of you I'm sure know this, I'm here to remind you tonight, a great thing has happened again for Iowa basketball under new head coach Ben McCollum. Trey Thompson, the 6'8", 220-pound blue chip 4-star forward moving forward as you project this to the college level out of Greenville, Tennessee. Trey Thompson signed to the Iowa Hawkeyes. So nothing late in the process here set to fall through the cracks. This is done. This is signed. This is announced from the Iowa Hawkeyes. So, man, I said it the other night. I'll say it again. The optimism, the buzz, the excitement for Iowa basketball, it is a real thing. The momentum for Iowa basketball right now, it is a real thing. Trey Thompson, this is not a player that Iowa basketball was landing over the past half decade of recruiting cycles. I don't know that Trey Thompson looks Iowa's way seriously, and I hate to say that, but I don't know that he looks Iowa's way seriously with Fran McCaffrey at the end of the tenure. So this is why probably some new blood was needed in Iowa. There's excitement back in Carver Hawkeye Arena for what is going to happen for Ben McCollum. You got to win. You got to win. You brought Bennett Sturts over, who was the Missouri Valley Conference Player of the Year. You went and you got Alvaro Fulgaris, who should step in, be a big-time stretch four, go score for you. The rest of the Drake additions, Brendan Hassan is, of course, a sharpshooter for the Hawkeyes that will factor right into that Iowa starting five rotation. But this big-time news for Iowa that there's no late-game snags here for Trey Thompson. And I said it the other day too, but don't let, and I can't imagine many of you are, but for any Purdue fans or other fans out there that want to try to take this recruiting victory away from you, oh, well, he was a 2026 kid and he reclassified, so that's the only reason he's going to Iowa. That's not the only reason that Trey Thompson signed with and will be an Iowa Hawkeye. That is a Purdue fan that wants to try to take this away for you or make excuses on why they didn't get the deal done and why Iowa did get the deal done. And you know what? Even if there's a little bit of truth to that, so what? Doesn't matter. Doesn't change the fact that Trey Thompson signed with Iowa and that this type of recruit that you weren't getting these guys, now you got one to pair with a big-time transfer portal class. So go win this first year. You got to go win now. You got to prove that you can take this show from the Missouri Valley Conference into the Big Ten and win and be a part now regularly of that upper third, that, contending for the Big Ten championship class of the Big Ten Conference. You got to go prove that. That's earned on the hardwood. But a lot of these early signs, I love that Ben McCollum, if it's Beth Getz, if it's the arrival of Ben McCollum combined with Beth Getz, I love that they've added that student section up front courtside on the south baseline. I think that's huge for Hawkeye basketball. So it's just positive thing after positive thing after positive thing for Iowa basketball right now. The best is how angry Purdue and Louisville got with him snubbing them, and Tennessee, no doubt. I mean, doesn't it feel good? Doesn't it feel great to win one of these? I mean, man, it took a little while, took long enough, but Iowa basketball, it certainly appears, is on a big-time come-up, back up, and Trey Thompson officially signing the latest indication of that. So I'm just excited, man. And I saw a comment under the announcement from Iowa on Twitter, X, formerly known as Twitter. The first comment, and I'm sorry, I am not giving proper credit here to the fan that first tweeted this, but I'm sure it's a sentiment that's shared by a lot of Iowa fans out there. I'm excited. The comment, I'm excited about Iowa basketball in a season again for the first time in a long time. And isn't that refreshing to just feel that excitement for Iowa men's basketball? I know a lot of Iowa fans have been overcome by excitement for Iowa women's basketball, and that continues to grow and build, and that's great. And there's doesn't need to be any end in sight to that. Obviously, we found out that you got an Iowa women's basketball recruit, a five-star that will be making a visit this fall to Iowa. Velichko, the five-star, will be locked in and making the Labor Day weekend visit. So there's still great excitement on Iowa women's basketball is into the equation. But, man, to get that back for Iowa men's basketball, and that's no slight to some of the great players. Garza, of course, Naismith winner, Chris Murray, Keegan Murray before him. I mean, there's been great individual players. But that excitement for, hey, maybe we can make a run to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. Maybe we can get to a Sweet 16 finally for the first time in a quarter century. Even with the individual excitement that you had, at times that was hampered or it was doused by the fear that, man, we just don't play defense and we can't play NCAA tournament winning basketball. We'll have exciting moments, but it's like a kick to the groin every time you had that individual player excitement. And it just feels like, again, you got to go prove it, but it feels like maybe something different is building for the first time in a while for Iowa basketball. And good for you guys, man. You've waited long enough for this. Okay, this, though, is a call-in show tonight, if you want it to be. Otherwise, I could babble. I am a professional filibusterer right here on Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live, Iowa at the voice of college football. Please like and subscribe and share with your Iowa friends that, hey, every Monday night, 6 o'clock, Thursday night, 6 o'clock, we got a show right here for you dedicated to Iowa fans. Iowa at the voice of college football, though, as you can tell, we don't just talk Iowa Hawkeyes football here. It's much more than that. Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. To the fans we go. Mr. T. Hink, Taylor Hink, in the house. What's up, man? How are you, buddy?
Pretty good. How about you?
Oh, as you can see, I'm in good spirits tonight. How are you, my friend?
Oh, pretty good. Enjoying the week. It's halfway through Friday Eve, so that's good to hear. So, anyways, basketball talk. I guess we're on the basketball talk. First time we've not played second fiddle to a recruit. I feel like under Fran, we always were the second team that lost out on the recruit, and this is a good step in the right direction with Ben at the helm.
No question. It's nice to not be, hey, you got to be in the mix, right, to win a recruitment. Mm-hmm. And you got to get invited to the dance with a pretty girl. But at the end of the day, finishing second fiddle in, recruitment after recruitment. And in plenty of occasions, Taylor, not getting to that point where you're not even the, runner-up in a recruitment. At some point, you got to seal the deal. At some point, you got to win the recruitment. And, it doesn't matter how you do it. If that's a player that's talented that reclassifies, what does it take to get you on campus? What do I got to do to sell this car today? What can I get to get you to leave the lot today and get the deal done? And Iowa looks like right now they got a staff full of closers, and that is refreshing, man. And I'm so happy for Iowa fans that that's the case right now.
Yeah, I think with having a younger staff on the staff will help a lot with the recruiting. I think Luke Barnwell is going to be a good recruiter. He's already in on another guy that's out in the 26 class, so they know they're going for a point guard, 4-star. So it'll be interesting to see how their recruiting goes. Ben stated in another podcast that they're not just going to recruit the local kids. They're going to go out and recruit like this whole United States. So that's another good thing to hear, that they're just not going to stay local on recruiting.
They are, by the way, Iowa, heavily in the mix now for 2026 4-star guard Cottrell Harmon, who he just announced his 6 finalists, and the Hawkeyes, they're right there, one of the 6 finalists. And it sounds like, now this can change, there's a long way to go in a recruitment that will, maybe the decision is nearing for a commitment, but that early signing period is in December. So there's a long way, right, of the road still to travel in a recruitment. But the thought is kind of right now, though, again, there could be a twist or turn, that it's kind of Iowa and Creighton for Cottrell Harmon. So you're already right there on the doorstep of another blue chipper in 2026. And it sounds like Iowa, though he's regarded, Cottrell Harmon, who is originally from outside Seattle. He attends, let's see here, which prep school? Wasatch Academy in Utah. Wasatch Academy in Utah. So he's at, one of those prep academies now, but he's originally from Seattle. Iowa thought to be kind of one of the 2 front runners there alongside the rest of the final 6, Alabama, Oregon, Rutgers, and Washington. So, of course, the hometown in-state school, Washington, that probably always on your radar. Creighton, in this revenue share era, T-Hink, they're investing big in basketball. I think everybody knows that they're going to be spendy at times, so you'll have to match that, or you're going to have to come up with an offer, an opportunity that's more attractive than what Creighton can bring to the table. But it sounds like, though he's regarded as a shooting guard out there, this is the quote that he had with Joe Tipton of On 3. Another perfect fit, actually, talking about Iowa, Ben McCollum's development of point guards is almost unmatched over the past 10 years in the college game. So the positional development would be great. It's a proven offensive system that 1/3 of the NBA uses. I'd be the on-court leader of that group, an extension of the coach, an amazing opportunity and challenge to take over after Sturtz leaves. So that's the recruiting pitch, right? Is, hey, you want to come be Bennett Sturtz? Here you go.
Mm-hmm. I was gonna say they're needing a point guard because they don't have Bennett Sturtz is gone. Cale Combs he's a sophomore, will be a junior this year. So there's some younger guys that are not gonna be seniors. They only have Bennett Sturtz and Tavion Banks that are seniors this year, so they can help build on it. Cam Manio's he's gonna be is he gonna be a junior? I think he's gonna be a junior. So they got some juniors on this team. Alvaro is gonna be a junior. So Brendan Hawson, he's a senior. So we'll need another shooting guard, but. I really like the expectations this year. I think they can make some serious headway in the Big Ten. I think they can finish at the top half. I think a lot of the bigger known guys, they don't think Iowa's going to make it the top half. They're thinking middle of the pack. But I think they can finish up the top with the All-American point guard and Bennett Sturtz and all the guys from Drake. I think they're gonna win here at Iowa. So
what's your expectation as a fan for this first year for Ben McCollum?
The first year, I want to get back to the big dance. I think that's realistic. I think they got there this year or last year. I think they can get there again. I don't know how well the Big Ten will be this year. I know in past years that going 10-10 would be sufficient enough to get into the big dance. But I think realistic opportunity is getting back to the big dance because I think they're proven. I think they can get back there. How about you?
I've got a couple of items that I'll touch on here in a moment. Mark Gronowski, 100%. Do much for you?
I hearing that he's 100% and doing full practice, all throwing, feeling confident, better than what I was when he came in and he was going through surgery in the spring. So having knowing that he's throwing the ball, working with the receivers high on KJ Parker and those receivers that he's took down to Dallas, I think he's in for a good year for Mark Gronowski.
Manning Passing Academy will be like a swear word if this season goes wrong. If it does not go the way we need it to, it's like, don't you ever tell me about another quarterback going to the Manning Passing Academy. T. Hink, man, I appreciate you, buddy. I hope you have a great night. And though it's belated, I hope July 4th was wonderful, my friend.
It's great. Got good grilling in. Had some good burgers. Hopefully your 4th was great. I hope you have a great rest of your week and weekend. So
appreciate you, brother. See you, man. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
There you go. That's T. Hink. And if you want to jump into anything Iowa related, by all means, here I'll share the link in the StreamYard link in the chat right there. Feel free to jump in and let's talk Hawks tonight. Okay, what are your goals for Ben McCollum in year one? What's the expectation that you have for Iowa basketball? 22 wins, and he puts the Big Ten on notice. Give me a little bit more information on Big Ten on notice. If Big Ben fills Carver and gets us to a Sweet 16 in his first year, let's bring spineless Barta back for the day and give Big Ben the lifetime contract. Yes, that would be very sweet for Iowa fans. So as T. Hink was sharing some of his thoughts, I jotted down a couple of mine. So let's see here. I'm going to pull this up while we're talking about this so I can just speak accurately upon it instead of going by memory. The latest bracketology. What does Mr. Joe Lenardi have in his latest bracketology? Iowa has been on that 8-9 type line, but where are the Hawkeyes in the latest update? All right, I gotta dig here. I'm sorry, everybody. I can't find it readily available. If somebody can find that NCAA bracketology from ESPN, toss it in the chat for me. But Iowa's been on that 8-9 line, and I'm pretty sure even with their most recent update, that's where Iowa's at, right? Kind of 7-10, 8-9 range. And okay, that would be obviously an acceptable first-year finish for Ben McCollum for the Hawkeyes. I'd like a little bit better than that. Maybe that's greedy. Maybe that's asking a little bit too much in year one. But a couple of the items that I jotted down, things you want to see. Things you want to see from Iowa basketball year one for Ben McCollum. You've already gotten some of them. You're landing big recruits. There's excitement on what the future of this program can deliver. So that's got to be one of the items you get, one of the items you see, and you're getting that with Bennett Sturtz following coach over. A transfer portal, a couple of them, right? Big transfer portal wins. Players that other teams wanted in a big way. Alvaro Fulgaris, a bunch of people wanted him. Brendan Hassan, people wanted the experienced sharpshooter. Iowa got those guys. So, and that's just a couple of names that weren't a part of that Drake infusion of talent, not named Bennett Sturtz. But those big recruiting wins in the transfer portal, you saw that, you got that, and you're continuing to see that with Trey Thompson signing, and you're continuing to see that with Iowa being in the final 6 schools for another blue chip recruit, 4-star guard, Cottrell Harmon. So you needed to see that, right? You needed some juice. You needed some buzz on the recruiting trail. But from this season itself, what do you need to see? I'd like to see the students engaged. And I know that's not a win-loss metric, but I think that's important for the long-term health of this Iowa basketball program. You need that student section they put down there, down on the baseline. Students, I'm looking to you. This is a call out to you. Iowa City, baby. Come on, students. It's time to show up. It's time to, on a regular basis, show out and make this a part of something that you regularly want to be a part of. This is something that needs to be rowdy on a regular basis. This needs to be a Carver arena that opposing teams don't have a ton of fun coming in and playing inside. So that's one item, right? Phil Carver and the student section. Make that thing rowdy. Get students to these games. Engage the student body. And in order to do that, what do you got to do? Well, you got to put a product on the floor, right? That's exciting, that students want to come watch and engage with and be a part of. So the program has to do its part. They got to win. It's got to be exciting. And in that, Bennett Sturtz, be a Big Ten star. Don't let this be a transition from the Missouri Valley Conference player of the year, where you go in and you, with Drake, you upset a 6th-seeded SEC squad in Missouri, right? You proved it in that environment, in that standalone game versus Missouri in the NCAA tournament. You can go lead and you can go beat a big-time power conference team, but now you got to go do it night in, night out. So that grind, that in-season grind in the Big Ten, let's just be fair about it. Let's be real about it. That's a different grind than, hey, we get to game plan and prep, and it's the opening game of an NCAA tournament. And since that bracket gets announced, we're studying up on every tendency that's advantage Drake versus Missouri, and boom, you get to go attack. Now you get, a little bit quicker turnarounds at times, and you got to go through that wear and tear and that grind one after another. So Bennett Sturtz, can you go be that big-time star that you're expected to be? That's got to happen for Iowa for a number of reasons. Number one, that means that, look, that's going to coincide with success for Iowa. If Bennett Sturtz is great, then Iowa's going to be pretty doggone good, right? Doesn't take a rocket scientist to put those puzzle pieces together. But it also, again, like Cottrell Harmon, his recruitment, they are selling, you can come in and you can be the next Bennett Sturtz. I want you to be my next Bennett Sturtz. So that means Bennett Sturtz needs to go into the Big Ten, and he's got to deliver for you, right? That way I can then go into your home with my staff of assistants, and I can get on that FaceTime call with you, and I can come close that FaceTime call with you because you want to be that Bennett Sturtz. Because guess what? I did get drafted in that first round of the 2026 NBA draft. So things that you want to see. You want to see Bennett Sturtz be a star. You want to start filling Carver Hawkeye Arena again. You want to get the students engaged. And then look, I like the number that you threw out, and 22 wins. Can you give me one more? Can you give me two more? Can you make it 24 to where we're a legitimate player in this Big Ten Conference title race? I don't want to just be, one of those final couple of teams getting into the NCAA tournament. I don't want to be on the bubble. I want to be comfortably in a team that folks are talking about making the second weekend of the NCAA tournament in year one. Because guess what? That's boom. That's momentum, baby. You already got some great momentum, and that's just momentum to build upon. So I get that it's the first year, but why lower the expectation? Why lower the expectation? Why not have the expectation that we can go do something special? We can contend in this conference. We can surprise in this conference, and we can seriously make a run at that second weekend of the NCAA tournament. Believe in that. Now, obviously, if at year's end you get into the NCAA tournament, then that in and of itself, probably you'd have to term it a success, right? I think one thing that I've found in years talking sports, reacting to sports, is expectations are a funny thing. Expectations are not stagnant. They're not horizontal, right? They go up, they go down, they adjust throughout the course of a season. So you start fast and you get off to a nice non-conference start. All of a sudden, the expectation of, hey, let's get to the NCAA tournament. Okay, well, now it's, wait a second, we might have something pretty special here. Bennett Sturtz, he looks like one of the best players in the Big Ten throughout this non-conference portion of the season. So expectations are a funny thing. They change as you navigate a season positively and negatively. Let's hope this is on the positive side for Iowa with Bennett Sturtz and company. So that's kind of one of the items, too, for me, clearly, that I'm hoping to see for Iowa is that the expectations change, that you expect to start making deeper NCAA tournament runs. I know that it's a scarred fan base. I get it. I know there's scar tissue. There should be. It's understandable. But guess what, baby? There's a new sheriff in town, and that means that there's reason to believe that you can make that climb into the second weekend of the NCAA tournament and, again, be a regular player in the Big Ten regular season race and in the Big Ten tournament race, which obviously Iowa won a couple of years ago. Magical run throughout that Big Ten tournament. But then, of course, didn't go so well when you got to the NCAA tournament. Came in as one of the hottest teams and, flamed right out in that first round game, unfortunately. So that's my hope, right? Just in closing on that subject, Phil Carver, get the students involved, engaged. Bennett Sturtz is a big-time Big Ten star, somebody we're talking about in terms of the Big Ten Player of the Year. I think that would be transformative for Iowa, and then raise the bar, raise the expectation. But obviously, I get it. If you just get back to the NCAA tournament, that's a clear improvement from where you were a season ago. Hawkeye Howard in the house. Howard, what's up? Hope you're doing well. Home from a long vacation. Go Hawks. Howard, where all did you go? You went, I think, south, right? And then you went west. I mean, you've been all over the place. If we make a Sweet 16, will you grow a mullet? Do you think that I could grow a mullet? No. I can't grow a mullet, man. I'm sorry. I'm not doing it. This is me publicly not subscribing to that. I love making the second weekend of the dance, but that's just not something that I can subscribe to. I'm sorry. I can't do it. I just can't do it. I would look horrific with a mullet. But Jennings Dunker looked pretty good. He was rocking the mullet. Looks pretty good on him. I don't think I can pull that off, man. I don't have that kind of swagger to pull that off. I just don't have it. Hawkeye Howard went to the Grand Canyon, Colorado, Kansas, and then up in Iowa for the 4th and just got back home. Well, look at you. You're a world traveler throughout this summer vacation. Hope you had a great summer vacation, Howard, and great to see you tonight. Yes, I agree with you, T. Hink. That's probably too much hair in the summer for Dunk, but hey, offensive linemen, man, they got a different personality about them. Okay, so we have about 10 minutes tonight and bowl cut. I'm not doing the bowl cut either, man. You're getting traditional, somewhat professional haircut for me, man. I'm too old to do anything wacky, but I would encourage the audience. I'm all for that. I sign on for the audience in solidarity, in celebration of Iowa basketball, Iowa football. Something special happens either way. I fully endorse you all to do the mullet, the bowl cut, whatever it may be. But you're not going to get anything exciting in the hairstyle from me because, look, I just can't rock. I can't do it. But enough of that. Enough of these shenanigans. Okay, so some big news in the landscape of college sports today. Ross Dellinger reporting and breaking the news that a new bill would be introduced to the U.S. House, and then hopefully pretty quickly to follow into the U.S. Senate. And maybe, just maybe this bill could make its way through Congress and get ratified, and with it, some, I think, changes that would set Iowa up for success. Okay, what is all of this? I'll try to be brief because this is the nitty-gritty, right, of college athletics. And I get that it's not for everybody out there. But in case you're curious, and in case you want to know a little bit about this, the members of the U.S. House, they have introduced today what is called the SCORE Act. It's an amended college sports bill. What all is in this thing? A bunch of items in this. It codifies the House settlement. It grants some liability protections. It preempts state NIL laws. So in cases where different states have basically said, yeah, the NCAA, you can't come after us. We've got state law that overrides and overrules any of your NCAA rules. So if we want to pay a player more for a NIL deal that might not be a true fair market NIL deal, or might not really be what any of us signed on for name, image, likeness, which was essentially, I will endorse your business, right? What we know as your traditional advertisement sponsorship deals, we know this has morphed into pay for play. So this basically combating that. The act originating from these committees, it'll have a couple of markups over the next couple of weeks and months where Republicans, Democrats, Congress, they'll go back and forth, right? The House will go back and forth, and they'll say, I like this piece of it. We don't really like that piece of it. So there is some adjusting that probably will happen to this SCORE Act bill. But some of the other items that it includes, the bill prohibits athlete compensation that may put schools over what is this now new revenue share cap, currently $20.5 billion. It requires all NIL deals to hold a valid business purpose and align with NIL Go's fair market value compensation range and with the College Sports Commission's anti-circumvention rules. So basically, if this gets passed, it's one step further, one step closer to NIL Go, to the clearinghouse, to pay for play. Adios. Sayonara. You get your revenue share cap, and anything that is a wild, wild west deal on top of that, you better hope that it's a real deal because it's not getting through the clearinghouse. So that's a part of this. Some other big-time items with this. One of the complaints from athletes and from some of the schools out there, folks that understand how this typically works, agents that were setting up some of these NIL deals and some of these revenue share contracts, you name it, with these universities, they were charging outrageous agent fees. And a lot of these agents, oh, by the way, they aren't really accredited agents, right? They're not accredited sports agents. This bill would require and limit agent compensation to 5% of a total athlete deal, whereas there's been some of these deals out there where agents are getting 10%, 20%. So outrageous fees that are not in step with what happens in the rest of the sports agent market that exists out there. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing just for these athletes, so they're not getting two-timed by some of these agents out there that, oh, by the way, aren't even really professional agents. So that's of note. Probably not, one of the major details as it pertains to how's this going to help or hurt Iowa, but just good news for athletes. The act, this SCORE Act, would require schools to provide athletes with certain levels of academic support and out-of-pocket health care for ex-athletes within 3 years of leaving school, and schools are not permitted to cut scholarships for injury or performance. That has, of late, been something that's been criticized out there. Florida State was reported upon by CBS as one of the schools that had kind of put in some of these revenue share deals that if you're not available, if there's injury, if there's performance issues, we could just cut ties with you. So this SCORE Act bill would make that a thing of the past. And as you look at the likelihood of how can this thing get passed, the Republicans, this is a Republican-introduced bill for the most part. The Republicans own the House. It obviously has to get through the Senate, but that item right there would be one of the pieces that Democrats have been fighting for, not being able to just cut a scholarship. So that's now a bipartisan item of this, that goes across party lines, and it's something that everybody can agree on, which if you're going to get this through the Senate, there's going to be some jockeying back and forth, and an item like that is going to be key to this getting ratified, to this getting passed. Okay, a couple other final items of this SCORE Act. And I get it, nitty-gritty. Can we get to what this means for Iowa? One of the more interesting concepts that the Act introduces requires schools to maintain 16 varsity sports teams. That also just so happens to be the FBS minimum of sports required. So what does that mean? Well, it means that the haircut that you heard about out there, the dark elephant in the room that folks weren't really wanting to spend a ton of time talking about with revenue share, right? Well, wait a second, $20.5 million that we have to now share and pay these athletes, and that money's a real thing, and where does it have to come from? Where is it going to come from? And what does that mean for these non-revenue generating sports? Well, this SCORE Act would mean that you got to keep 16 varsity sports teams. So that means that there's going to be not just a bunch of sports vanishing out there in college athletics. So that's big news for some of the Olympic programs out there that, let's just say it what it was, they were in jeopardy with this House settlement with the revenue sharing. Some of these programs, because they don't generate money, they're not football, they were at risk. This would be a large step in the right direction toward protecting some of those. Let's see, student fees in the Big Ten and in the SEC, they would not be permitted to be used to support their athletic programs. So that's kind of interesting. So, okay, how does this impact Iowa? I've said this summer, I've said it throughout the revenue share buildup. Is this thing going to happen? What does it mean if it does? I think it's advantage Iowa. And why is it advantage Iowa? Because Iowa has already been successfully operating in the margins. Let's just talk football. Has been operating in the margins of college football. Iowa leans on its evaluations. They don't go get the 4-star, 5-star kid every single time. You guys know this. Many of you frustrated by it at times, right? Like, why can't we go get this blue chip guy? Well, we're getting outbid. We're not going to spend like that. We don't have the same NIL collective backing. Well, if collectives aren't as powerful as they used to be, if how you allocate money is of utmost importance, advantage Iowa. I like that for Kirk Ferentz. I like that for Iowa, where they can lean on their evals. They can lean on getting that 3-star, 4-star kid here and there, in-state kid, Chicago metro area, you name it, right? Blue chip kid from around the area. They pick and choose, get a couple. lean on that ability to evaluate properly, go get that diamond in the rough, and then develop. And oh, by the way, you don't pay as much when you get the 3-star kid on campus early. And then, oh, by the way, Iowa. What do we talk about with Iowa? And you see it. I'm looking at the spring depth chart, right? The spring depth chart we had. And let's look at some names on it that are going to be key contributors for Iowa. Max Llewellyn. He didn't have to come back. He chose to. Let's see here. Ethan Hurkett. Didn't have to come back. He chose to. List goes on. Offensive line. Logan Jones. Didn't have to come back. Retention. He chose to. And there's plenty of examples like that in recent memory. Jack Campbell. Sam Laporta. Higgins. On and on and on. I trumpeted this for a long time that Iowa, to me, is as good as anybody in college football in the player retention, their own player retention market, their own player retention pool. So if that's what Iowa's working with, where this gets closer, or it's just flat out everybody gets 20 and a half and you front loaded this year, but guess what? There's no more front loading down the road. And these sneaky NIL deals that aren't really true NIL deals, if that's a thing of the past, advantage Iowa. So this is something to monitor, this SCORE Act. And it has some juice because it's a Republican-introduced bill. It will clear the U.S. House. The Senate, it'll need 7 Democratic votes, but it was introduced with the support of 2 Democratic pieces of representation. So that's significant that maybe this thing's actually going to happen. And if this thing actually happens, then that is a massive shift in college athletics. And I don't just think it's great for Iowa football, by the way. I think that then that can be positive for your other sports too. Let's talk Iowa women's basketball. One of the trendiest women's basketball programs right now. If there's not a lot of folks outbidding me and I can sell Carver Hawkeye Arena, I can sell the fan base to you, I can sell the marketing opportunities that Iowa presents to you, that it's even. Okay, baby. Now we're talking. Now we're talking about turning in to a college women's basketball powerhouse. So it's not just Iowa football, where if this crazy spending is a thing of the past, and if it's all even, baby, then you can trust your evaluations. You can trust the folks that are in place to win, baby, to develop and win, and maybe win big. So the SCORES Act, something to keep our eye on. Let's see a couple of your comments and we'll call it a day. Like and subscribe. Help Josh Elmer's brand. Yes. And I would just say help the Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live brand. Help Iowa at the voice of college football. Corey, Brad, and Mark, these guys, all of us, right? Everybody, when you like, you subscribe, you share, it helps all of us. So thank you. And my big goal has just been to turn this into an Iowa community that you want to be a part of, right? That it's fun and we get to hang out on Mondays and Thursdays at 6 o'clock and we enjoy it. And it's something that you want to regularly be a part of. So yes, please. That's the best way for me. Look, if you want to donate to the program, that would be a nice financial way to support me. There's that little thanks button that you can click on and support me and Mark and Corey and everybody here on the channel. But the best way will always be like, subscribe, share. That's the way that we get eyeballs, and then eventually sponsors want to be a part of it. So thank you, T. Hink, for saying that. And yes, please do share. I just want the days of the Mickey D's bags to come back. $500,000 in a paper bag were the good old days. Buckwild, what are you talking about? You're living in those days right now. It's the wild, wild west. That's what we're doing in college sports right now today. Logan, you might be right. Maybe it's time to sell some kind of merch. I got to look into that. I got to get somebody smarter than me involved in the marketing side of that. But hey, everybody, hey, thanks for hanging out with me. Love getting to do this with you guys, man. So fun. 51 days. The next time we do this, we'll be sub 50, baby, until Iowa Hawkeyes football. Until then, I'll see you guys next Monday night, 6 o'clock, right back here, baby. Iowa at the voice of college football, Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. So great to be with all of you. Until then, I'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend. Go Hawks, everybody.